So here's something that'll make your jaw drop. What if I told you that the couple who claimed they were escaping control actually just switched controllers? And this time, the person holding the strings kept receipts, literal, recorded, undeniable receipts. We've all watched this story unfold, right? Harry and Meghan fleeing the royal family, desperate for freedom, privacy, a chance to finally breathe. It felt like a modern fairy tale, two people choosing love over tradition. But what if the whole thing was just act one of a much longer, much darker play? Because here's what nobody saw coming. When they left England with barely anything but suitcases and broken relationships, someone was waiting in the wings. Tyler Perry. And he didn't just offer them a place to stay. He became their lifeline. Private jet, sprawling Beverly Hills estate, around-the-clock security, everything they needed to disappear from the chaos. Meghan called him her protector, the one person who showed up when everyone else turned their backs. Sounds generous, doesn't it? Almost too generous. And in Hollywood, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Here's what most people don't know about Tyler Perry. The man didn't build a billion-dollar empire by being careless. He's calculated, strategic, and he learned a long time ago that loyalty in this town has an expiration date. So he protects himself. He documents conversations. He saves emails. He records meetings. He calls it his vault. And according to people who've worked with him, it's packed with enough information to ruin careers, end friendships, and rewrite public narratives overnight. Now, when Harry and Meghan moved into that mansion, they didn't just get handed keys and a warm welcome. They signed paperwork, standard residency agreement, nothing unusual on the surface. But tucked deep in the fine print was something most people would skim right past. A clause. And that clause essentially said this: if you ever publicly distance yourself from me or pretend I wasn't there when you needed me most, I reserve the right to release documentation that protects my reputation. They signed it. Both of them. Fast forward a couple years, Harry and Meghan have rebuilt their image. They're signing deals worth millions, sitting down for interviews, launching projects built entirely on the idea of radical honesty and vulnerability. The world is watching, listening, believing. Their brand is authenticity. Their currency is pain turned into purpose. Then Tyler Perry's name starts appearing in headlines for all the wrong reasons. A major lawsuit hits his studio. Allegations about workplace culture, accusations of toxic behavior, public scrutiny he hasn't faced in years. And suddenly, Meghan's team makes a decision. They decide that being associated with Perry isn't good for the brand anymore. So they start erasing him. Quietly, carefully. Photos get taken down. Interviews get edited. Articles get scrubbed. Even public records start getting revised. It's like they're trying to pretend that chapter of their story never happened. That's when everything changed. Because that clause they signed, the one buried in the paperwork, they just triggered it. And Perry, who's been watching the whole thing unfold, didn't panic, didn't make threats, didn't even pick up the phone. He just reminded them, calmly, that they agreed to this. Then the first audio file appeared online. 58 seconds. Just under a minute of what sounded like Harry and Meghan in a private conversation, talking strategy. You could hear them discussing how to bring up Diana, how to reference the grief without it feeling forced, how to make sure Netflix got the emotion they wanted without it looking staged. And Harry's voice in the background saying something about not crying too much because the executive said it was overwhelming. 58 seconds. That's all it took for people to start questioning everything. Was the Oprah interview rehearsed? Were those tears on cue? Was every vulnerable moment we saw part of a script they'd been perfecting behind closed doors? A week later, another recording surfaced. This one was longer. You could hear Harry pacing, talking about how they needed to look polished but not too polished, heartbroken but not broken. And then Meghan's voice cutting in with, "Then we show the garden scenes, calm, grounded, real, nothing too emotional until the third act." The third act, like it was a movie, like their entire life was a screenplay with carefully timed emotional beats. And Tyler Perry? He said nothing. Didn't confirm anything, didn't deny anything. Just let the audio speak for itself. Because when you've got the receipts, you don't need to say a word. But the audio files were just the beginning. What came next was so much worse. Turns out there was a document, an actual file. Multi-page, professional, detailed. The title alone was enough to make people's heads spin. Strategic Repositioning Plan. Not a journal entry, not rough notes scribbled on a napkin. A full strategy document with timelines, media phases, talking points, and rebranding objectives. Sources close to the situation say this thing was drafted less than a month after Harry and Meghan moved into Perry's house. It laid out everything. Phase 1, the Oprah interview. Phase 2, the Netflix docuseries. Phase 3, building a lifestyle empire rooted in authenticity and resilience. It was methodical, it was organized, and at the bottom of the last page, 2 signatures. This wasn't a couple telling their truth. This was a business plan, a rollout strategy designed to rebuild their image, monetize their pain, and control every single piece of the narrative from start to finish. People thought they left the palace to escape the institution. Turns out, maybe they just left to build their own, a new monarchy, one with better lighting, sleeker branding, and a production budget. After that document leaked, insiders say Harry completely unraveled, couldn't sleep, spent hours in the middle of the night replaying the recordings, reading the document over and over like he was trying to find proof it wasn't real. He wasn't angry. He was empty, hollowed out, like he'd finally seen the whole picture and realized he'd been living inside a performance he didn't even know he was part of. His phone calls with Meghan got shorter, colder. The partnership that once looked like rebellion now felt like a weight neither of them knew how to carry. And then he made a decision nobody expected. He didn't call his publicist, didn't call Netflix, didn't reach out to his American legal team. He called London, specifically his father's office. It wasn't a formal request, nothing official, just a quiet message that said everything without using many words at all. I'm not okay. 48 hours later, a private plane took off from a small, quiet airport north of Los Angeles. No cameras, no security parade, no Meghan, just Harry flying back to the one place he swore he'd never return to. The prince who ran from the palace was going home. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, Meghan's world started falling apart in real time. That new lifestyle brand she'd been building, the one that was supposed to be her big reinvention, crashed harder than anyone predicted. Comment sections turned vicious. Partnerships that were almost finalized suddenly went silent. Magazines that used to give her glossy cover features stopped returning calls. Behind the scenes, executives were pulling out. They didn't want their brands tied to someone whose authenticity had just been publicly shredded. The woman who built everything on storytelling lost it all the moment the story got exposed as scripted. And Tyler Perry? Thriving. That lawsuit everyone thought would destroy him quietly settled. His reputation bounced back stronger than before. He didn't go on talk shows to defend himself, didn't release statements, didn't need to. The receipts did all the talking. Calm, untouchable, and still holding the keys to that vault. Rumor is, it's still not empty. So picture this. Early morning in the English countryside. Fog rolling over old stone estates. A black car pulls up to a private residence. The door opens. Harry steps out. No photographers, no fanfare. Just silence. For the first time in years, he's not running away from the crown. He's walking toward it. Word is he's staying somewhere quiet, somewhere protected, surrounded by people who knew him before the cameras, before California, before everything became a calculated move. He's not planning some grand return. He's just trying to remember what it feels like to stop performing. Because somewhere between the bright lights of Los Angeles and the cold, gray morning in London, something clicked. He didn't escape the institution. He just traded one for another. Palace protocols for media strategies, royal duty for brand management, different cage, same bars. That flight back wasn't retreat, it was clarity. Now the world's watching, wondering if this is the end of Harry and Meghan's story, or if they're about to split into 2 completely separate narratives. Because if Tyler Perry really does have more in that vault, more recordings, more drafts, more proof, then this isn't over. Not even close. And when those files drop, if they drop, it won't just rattle Hollywood or shake the monarchy. It'll rewrite every headline, every interview, every tearful moment we ever believed was real. For now, the prince is quiet, the mogul is calm, and the duchess is slowly disappearing from the front pages. But don't mistake silence for closure. This is just the pause before the next act begins. He thought he escaped the crown, but maybe the crown was never the problem. Maybe the real cage was believing freedom could be bought, branded, and sold. So what happens next? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Harry's back in London, probably staring at old family portraits and wondering how he got here. Meghan's basically vanished from the narrative. Is this really the end? Not a chance. Even if Tyler Perry locks that vault forever, the damage is permanent. The illusion's shattered. People aren't buying the vulnerability anymore. And Hollywood, once the tide shifts, it shifts fast. There's no swimming back. I'm guessing Meghan's got a few cards left to play. She's not the type to just fade quietly into the background. Maybe she'll rebrand again, spin this as her being manipulated by Perry, try to reclaim the victim role. But I don't think it'll land this time. People have developed a radar for this kind of thing now. And Harry? He's stuck. Burned bridges with his family, alienated a huge chunk of his supporters, and probably realizing he got played, not just by the palace, but by people he trusted more. You almost feel bad for him. He's always seemed like someone searching for belonging, and he keeps finding himself in the wrong rooms. But let's be honest, the royal family isn't innocent in this either. They're masters at controlling narratives, and they're probably relieved that Harry and Meghan are taking all the heat. It's a perfect distraction from their own mess. There are still skeletons in those palace closets that nobody's talking about. The monarchy's relevance gets questioned constantly. This drama just buys them time. So what does the future actually look like? I think Harry tries to quietly fold back into royal life, takes on some charity work, keeps his head down. Maybe in 10 years he writes another book trying to explain what really happened. It'll sell millions of copies. People will talk about it for 2 weeks, then move on. Meghan, I honestly don't know. Maybe she disappears for a while, then comes back with something completely different. A political angle, a wellness platform. Who knows? The one thing I'm sure of is she won't quit. That's not who she is. But the wild card in all of this is Tyler Perry. He holds all the power now. He's got the proof, the reputation, and the resources. He could stay silent and let this fade into tabloid history. Or he could drop one more bomb just to remind everyone who really runs this story. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if he turns the whole thing into a film. The Royal Exit, a Tyler Perry production. Can you imagine? It would break box office records. And that's maybe the saddest part of all this. It's all just content now. Real lives, real pain, real consequences, all packaged up as entertainment. We're sitting here dissecting it like it's a scripted series, forgetting these are actual people making actual decisions that actually matter. So yeah, the story's paused, but it's nowhere near finished. There are too many egos, too much money, and too many secrets still locked away. The next act is coming, and when it does, it's going to be explosive. I'll be watching. We all will. It's just sad, isn't it, that it all came to this?